Judging. We are talking about the placement of living beings based on their activity of body, which is the Kai Yoga. Now, the Kai Yoga has got 7 kinds. So let's check how each kind is placed on the levels of consciousness. The first one, which is the Karmaan Kai Yoga, which is the body made out of the karmic waves. This body with a living being stays only during its transition from one place where it dies and it takes birth into the second place as another body. In that transition phase, when it travels to its new body, that transition phase, it has only Karman Kai Yoga. And in that, see how it takes place. If a person dies with a false perception, who is at the first level of consciousness, and then he takes birth into another body, he also has the same level of consciousness in that body, which is the first level. So the Karman Kayo, he travels with that false perception. So he will stay at the one level. Now suppose a human being gains clarity. Now by gaining clarity, it actually dies with the clarity and travels in its path towards the new body, and it maintains its level of clarity in the new body state. During that travel, it travels with its clarity, and that is the reason the Karman Kai Yoga living being can also be found at the fourth level of consciousness, which is having a state of clarity. Suppose now a person dies when it has clarity, but it is about to give up its clarity and roll down towards the first level of consciousness. When it is rolling to its first level, which is the false perception state, gives up its clarity state, while during that rolling down, it is supposed at the second level of consciousness, but it dies at that time. So it travels in its transition path in the second level of consciousness because it died at the second level of consciousness. So the Karman Kai Yoga body of a living being can be found also at the second level of consciousness. It is very interesting to understand that a person or a being never dies when they are in the third level of consciousness. They die only when they are in the first level, they die only when they are in the fourth level, and they die only when they are at the second level of consciousness. Now let's see what is the 13th level of consciousness for the Karman Kai Yoga. How does that take place? So at the 13th level, it's a very special phenomenon that takes place. What happens is, at the 13th state, the consciousness of that living being is known as an Arihant or as a Tirthankar. In that period of a Tirthankar phase, they do a very special phenomenon, and this is known as Samudghat, in which they expand their soul particles to expand it to the complete extremities of the chain universe, and then it collapses back inside them in their form of the body. So this format of expansion of their soul particles and then collapsing back of those soul particles into their original form, this form is known as Karman. This form is known as Samudghat, and it is in the Samudghat phase that the Karman Kai Yoga is active, and that is the reason for the 13th level of consciousness we have placed that a living being can have in that state the Karman Kai Yoga. Now let's understand the second one, Audarik Mishra Kai Yoga, which is the mixed state of body which is present when, as a human being or as an animal being, we have a body that we shed and we take birth as a human or a heavenly being, as a human or a animal being, Tiryanch being. Now what happens is we have mixed state which is having the waves of Audarik wave and the Karman wave. That forms the Audarik Mishra Kai wave. With this wave, we are at the first level of consciousness. Right now we are there. When we were taking birth and before our whole body was formed, we had the Mishra kind of Audarik body. When a person has a clarity and it takes birth in a new place with clarity. That means that birthing process and formation of the whole body is taking place while it is in the fourth level of consciousness with clarity. So it can have the fourth level. Now when it dies from the clarity state to the false perception stage, and it dies in between, and while it is dying, it falls, almost dies when it is at the second level of consciousness. So it is at that time when a living being can have also an Audarik Mishra Kai Yoga state. And the 13th one. The 13th one is again the very special phenomenon that takes place only with the Kevali Bhagwan or an Arihant Bhagwan. And for them, they have the Audarik Mishra Kai Yoga. That means that is during the procedure of that phenomenon known as Samudghar, they have this kind of Kai Yoga active at that time. Let's go to the next one, which is Audarik Kai Yoga. Now, Audarik Kai Yoga, living being with a body which is Audarik, like our coarse physical body, can be found from 1 to 13 levels. Any of these steps a person can be found. For example, Muni Maharaj Ji, he also has an Audarik Kai Yoga. He will be found at 6. For example, a person who has vows of Satya, Ahimsa, Anuvrat, so he can be found at the 5th level of consciousness, and he has this kind of body. We have our kind of body. We are found at the 1st level of consciousness. So in this way, any living being can be found in 1 to 13 steps and can have an Audarik Kai Yoga. Let's go to the Vaikrik Mishra Kai Yoga. Now the Vaikrik body is the body which belongs only to the heavenly or the hellish beings. So the body of the hellish and the heavenly beings is known as Vaikrik Kai Yoga. Stop.